Hi all, welcome to office hours circa COVID-19. Nice to see you
Osquery's going
remote,
viral.
as always. Anyhow, hope everyone's had a good couple of weeks. Kind of looks like the usual faces, but can haircut, Zach, maybe?
You got it.
New world, it's a new person here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid I don't. Everything that I can think about is now like my child all the time. And what is it like trying to work from home and homeschool at the same time? So I'm sorry, I have like nothing since last week. Anyone want to raise any highlights since the last meeting?
Well, we had AR64 support. That's a big one. What were you saying? Oh, well, we have a couple of pull requests open last week. The first one was on the osquery toolchain, which I was able to test using AR64 emulator. It took like 5 days to build everything, a couple of hours a day, and it works. So it is just been merged. We only have to test the one on the osquery repository. I think I'm going to rent an instance, an AC2, because otherwise it will never get done. And yeah, I mean, I would like to merge it sooner rather than later, even though I don't know when we can mark it as stable. There are many things different in the architecture, so some tests are passing. But if everyone agrees, we can maybe start marking this release as a beta, just for this architecture. Let people try it out, maybe help out in fixing things. And yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember all of these details. So the toolchain one you merged, and presumably, is that going to have an artifact that we host in the GitHub releases with the other ones, or?
Yeah, I didn't rebuild the whole thing just yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did build it here, though when I hit the merge button, the commit has changed. So I will just spend 5 days building it again. But I mean, well, maybe I just get the instance.
Or if you rent an instance.
Yeah.
I do not think I have bandwidth to spin up osquery AWS setups. I have strong opinions about how we do that, at least as an osquery organization. None of those opinions cover what you, Alessandro, chooses to do in your personal accounts. Though there's sort of a question there of like, is there costs associated? Are those costs you want to try and think about reimbursement for? Or is it like down in the pennies and who cares?
Well, I think it's not an issue if it's just something I spawn to build things, test things. But yeah, if we want to have our own instance, I checked on the AWS calculator. It is going to cost roughly $2,500 a year. If we want a dedicated machine, we can use as a CI. So
my guess is we don't want that today, but that doesn't mean we're not willing to like spin stuff up to run builds. I don't know. I just feel like moving to dedicated instances is a really big change from what our infrastructure footprint is right now.
Yeah.
That I'm kind of loath to just do it.
I mean, if we can get it for free as an open source project, it would be nice, though there are some restrictions when applying to the AWS project.
It's not actually even the cost I'm worried. The cost isn't the main driver. One of the things that I feel a little bit sort of unsure of is we don't run servers right now, right? We have no persistent instances as a project. That's not a need we have, right? Our CI runs kind of outsourced in the cloud as a SaaS, right? So like moving to how do we manage servers? What are the credentials? Who's patching them? Like, it's just a huge ball of wax that if we can kick that forward, the longer we can kick that forward, the better it will be.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like I already get too many GitHub notifications for like Lodash is insecure on some random repository. Zach laughs because he gets the same ones.
So no, the reason I was considering it is because if this is something that people would want to use, I would like not to have them rely on unofficial packages that may or may not contain stuff we don't want it to contain. Well, that's the only reason. Or we can just, once in a while we spin up an instance, run the test, package something, and without actually having a CI.
My guess is that we'll end up doing something like that. At least only because I don't know what other choices we have for a little while.
Not much, as far as I know. There's no way to connect it to the Azure because there is no agent for AR64, according to Stefano. Am I right?
But we may see this change. We may see this change. So like right now, the official Linux builds, the last couple of the Linux releases were done on GCP Linux machines that I spun up just to run the build. So if the Arch machines can follow a sort of identical pattern of like, when we go to cut a release, we spin up a machine, build the release, and then destroy the machine again. Like the costs for doing one-offs like that are tiny.
Actually, there is ARM support. I did not see it apparently.
Oh, nice.
For the Linux agent. So yeah,
it may not have been there the last time you looked.
Could be.
Probably.
So I may get. It's not sure, but I may get access to an NVIDIA Jetson something machine, which is this kind of mini ATX desktop computer with a powerful AR64 processor on board. And you can actually use your own RAM sticks and SSD storage. And if we can get it, set up with osquery stuff, we can use that too without having an instance.
Same question though, like needing to keep the OS patched and up to date is an ongoing commitment of work. I'm managing credentials, so like I'm sort of happier with ad hoc instances in some ways because if I spin up an instance, I can be if the process for cutting a release is like spin up instance, run apt-get update, build osquery, destroy instance, like I'm pretty comfortable with sort of the security ramifications of that, and there isn't a long-term like, well, how are we monitoring our build infrastructure?
With osquery.
Of course, but like,
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be something. It wouldn't be something that I would keep online all the time for everyone. Only you and the others would have access to it.
Anyhow, I mostly want to kick forward running infrastructure as long as. I know we're going to have to start infrastructure stuff, but I want to kick forward running servers as long as we can. Maybe I'm in the minority here.
Oh yeah, this actually leads to the system dependency layer, since it is something that the contributors that made this pull request also expressed interest in. We already had something that kind of worked for Arch Linux, which was maintained by one of the upstream developers. And Stefano has been looking at it, doing some refactor, and making it work better, which he's going to talk about it, but maybe it's going to help with LGTM.
Yeah, although it's currently on hold because yeah, the fact that it was made for Arch Linux, so Arch Linux has a certain need and layout of dependencies, and I was testing it on Ubuntu, and obviously, since some of the dependency have different version and they depend on different set of libraries sometimes, this is currently not well supported. So we were in the process of thinking of maybe doing a bigger refactor, which meant removing layers. Actually, not immediately, because we still need the concept of layers due to the source migration from Facebook to source migration. Though, yeah, in a sense, we want to simplify and use a method that is nearer to what CMake standard behavior is, which is simply passing it path, CMake module's path, so that it automatically searches the libraries in those paths, instead of having to write a good part of that logic into custom CMake code, basically. So we want to remove the custom parts as much as possible, and this should also simplify the system layer versioning thing, because otherwise we have to create a framework to say, okay, this is Ubuntu and needs all of this, and we need a framework to be able to say that. So there is a bit of work on that side to do.
So what you mentioned, passing paths to CMake. What is that? Is that like what's the mechanism? Is the mechanism like a bunch of -d arguments? Is it just like looking at the path variable?
Yeah, exactly. So it's passing -d options or variables, because by default you have the mechanism, which is find package or find library, which, as the name says, they try to find in a certain path the library, the name, the library name you give them, and they will retrieve you not only the library name but also other information, like include directories, etc. This automatically works, and you can control where those libraries are searched through those variables or options, setting CMake module paths.
I feel sort of sad suggesting this, but I feel like we're going to end up reinventing autoconf.
It's not, well, the thing is that what we did now was actually inventing, which was kind of necessary, inventing a system on top of the actual standard behavior of CMake, which was fine, which is still fine, until we are in this situation where we have again some libraries coming from Facebook, some library coming from source. But actually, when you need to start mixing them, it's not that easy anymore. And if you have to add other logic, like again, recognize which distro you're on, etc. Yeah, it's actually better to have better and easier to have the user pass the paths. Obviously, we can still have files, CMake files that have defaults for each distro to simplify the work of the user. But if the user has to modify this behavior, we'd like to have it be standard, not something custom.
So the general, I'm not super familiar with CMake, but it sounds like you're suggesting we sort of get to a model where any necessary library should be passed in via a -d option, and we can sort of preset them, so you can say like, here's the Ubuntu thing, just use the Ubuntu thing, or here's the Arch one, use the Arch one.
Yeah.
But then if you wanted to do something else, maybe you would copy the Ubuntu file, or maybe you would just like override one thing on the command line, or something like that.
Yeah, typically, for instance, again, I can make a practical example for the Ubuntu system layer thing. There are a couple of libraries that are not available from the repositories. And yes, okay, you could install custom third-party PPAs and things like that. Though, if you don't want, you can use the source layer ones you have. So it means that you have to build them. Though each one of those libraries, when they are in the source layer, might have different dependencies on other libraries than the one you take from the system. So you have to correctly mix and match them. So instead of, again, using the layer system and reverting back to the standard CMake system, should simplify this. Retrieve the correct dependency tree, and without the user having to do other work in searching which library depends on what, etc.
Is there space for us to? I feel like this. To me, this dovetails a little bit with this other question we've had around, building osquery can be pretty painful because you often have to build the third-party modules. So we've talked a little bit about whether we can sort of host build artifacts somewhere, somehow. And, when you talk about the need to sort of ship things from source, especially for like, I don't know, Ubuntu is missing some library, so one of our libraries needs to get built. Like, to me, that implies that we're likely to see that given library will need a different binary distribution for each major Ubuntu release, because each major Ubuntu release probably has different things. So that feels doable, but it's kind of just, I don't know, is this like what you're thinking?
So I understand your concern, though what I was saying is that, so on one side we have what we want to support, and on the other side it's what we would like to simplify when the user wants to use something else than what we support. So yes, we still want to definitely have pre-built libraries which work everywhere, like the ones built from source. Though the problem is that there are users and cases where you cannot, or the user don't want to use them. So this what we were proposing is to simplify this case also for us, because LGTM has one of the similar cases, let's say, which is again simplifying the how you give different dependencies, how you mix those dependencies. So they are both true. We want to support pre-built libraries, but we don't want to actually. I mean, there is some work the user have to do if you want to go out from the 2 or 3 setups we want to have. So all source, all pre-built, and maybe all system layer. So I don't think we want to create a library for each distro, etc., etc. So specific for each distro. That's not what we would like to do.
I mean,
I explain myself.
I think the thing that I'm not sure how it's going to shake out is you mentioned, there's some libraries that don't exist on Ubuntu, so we have to find ways of, how will we handle that case?
Okay, so, well, in that case for LGTM, it's we can either use some of our pre-built libraries, or we can use all of them as pre-built. Or for the specific usage of LGTM, we can decide to use some third-party repository. So in this case, it doesn't matter, it's our choice. the choice of the project, let's say.
I'm thinking less about LGTM and more about
Yeah.
like the Arch maintainers or the or a hypothetical Ubuntu maintainer.
Yeah, well, that is, I think that has to be a problem for the maintainer itself. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually offer to
Yeah.
take care of it.
I mean, at some points in time, the answer would be, well, if your package needs X, you should put X into Ubuntu as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we want
Yeah.
to simplify their life, though the supporting those libraries, I think it has to be their their job, let's say.
Okay. What do you need to go forward? Just more talking, thinking,
Yeah. Well,
agreement.
this was useful, actually. I mean, this was useful. This talk currently. So, yeah. I still need obviously to think, how to break down everything. So we still have to wait until I think the first step is to actually finish porting all the libraries to the source layer. So we don't actually need layers anymore. And then from there, start doing this work, this refactoring work.
Mm-hmm. And at the point in time we do that, how does that fit with the Buck integrations?
Wait, sorry?
How does this change sort of our Buck compatibility?
No.
Okay.
No, I actually think that. I mean, Teddy talked about this a couple of times. I think it is possibly one of the only solution, which is like using, having Buck take the libraries from CMake. So having CMake run once and grab all the libraries, actually even build them, if I recall right, and then having Buck use those libraries, because reproducing again a source layer thing also on Buck is a bit time consuming and maintenance overhead.
Okay. I sort of just wanted to ask it since I know, so it sounds like at some point we might drop Buck support and that there's more agreement for that at this point than there was when we started.
It's getting harder and harder to keep it up to date with everything else. And speaking for me, I was hoping we would get more support from Ryan from Facebook, as promised, but it just didn't really happen for one reason or the other. And so, it's, for example, the OpenSSL update. I'm not even sure if we can easily update the library on Buck. The current version is in end of life, and it will probably have CVE soon.
That's you're not sure if we can update that in Buck?
Yeah.
No, because there are two dependencies, binary dependencies that we cannot even rebuild or even upload somewhere. It was useful for people who didn't want to build the source layer during development, but at this point, they may differ so much that I don't think it is safe anymore to develop directly on Buck.
Since I guess we're bouncing around a little bit, pull 6302 is the OpenSSL update one.
Yeah.
Can we merge that one without Buck?
Yes. So I wanted to say a couple of things. So yes, I've done a workaround with Buck, which simply means some if-def preprocessor thing, which basically uses the old API instead of the newer one. So they are mostly compatible, the two versions. There are only some APIs that have been added and some access to underlying structure that have been removed. So you have to call other APIs. And that has been dealt with. Currently, there's a failure, but it's a CI issue. I will solve that too. And yeah, the second thing about that PR is that it also contains a small fix about librd Kafka on Linux that was, at least till now, it wasn't building with SSL and SASL scrums support, which are two methods of authentications. And if anyone has access to Kafka or can, test, I will ping again that there is an issue open about it. I will ping again the original author, but if anyone else wants to give it a go and see if now everything works and the SSL authentication works, that would be appreciated. And jumping again back on Bach, yeah, for that update, OpenSSL update, I had to update the librpm version, for instance, because that was not building otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in the Bach case, this means that we would have again to download it from source, build it from source, etc., which is not the case currently.
I guess what I was trying to maybe get at is 6302 updates OpenSSL for CMake. Does
Yes.
Does it update OpenSSL for Bach?
No, that's
right,
why.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So
no, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that puts us in a situation where, if there is a CVE released for OpenSSL, like, it's not in our shipped product, but it's in our source code, and like this is a very weird skew here. Like suddenly you actually get different product when built with the two, which I guess will start happening as we like look towards OS releases too in different source layers. But like, it's a little different when it comes from us.
It's already like this because some libraries are older on Bach, like Boost and others.
Mm-hmm. So I, one of the things that I wonder. Sorry, go ahead, Group.
Sorry to interrupt. Has Facebook actually signaled that they care about us maintaining the Bach rules?
Haha, I was going to speak to that. This has come up in a handful of prior office hours, and without checking notes, the original intent was to basically make Teddy and Nick's lives easier, and they were excited about that. And I think it helped them a little bit in the beginning. My understanding is that at this point, they're both comfortable enough with CMake that they have both floated that maybe we can remove Bach. My stance on this, for what it's worth, is I want to just straight up defer to Teddy and Nick. As long as Teddy and Nick derive value and think it's worth it, they're both so involved, I'm happy to keep it. As soon as they think that the cost isn't worth the value, we should remove it.
I agree.
I'm going to agree with that. We should ask them, because
and if
it's a lot of discussion.
If like this OpenSSL thing might really be a driver, I might suggest we just create an issue and get them to basically sign off on an issue, and then we'll rip it out or something, or like mention an issue, right? Like, no, let's keep it a little bit longer. But OpenSSL versions diverging feels like it's potentially a big gotcha there. I guess I can open an issue quickly. Unless someone else wants to. I'll open one and tag it into the meetings here. I'll finish that afterwards. Anyhow, so it sounds like 6302 might be mergeable if and when someone vets the libkafka fix.
Yeah.
Other PRs people wanted to discuss.
I introduced 6303. I originally over-engineered the formula support in osquery because I wasn't sure I was going to convert all the libraries to source with Stefano, but we did. And since it has been causing some trouble in the past, because it was too complex, Stefano has been stripping this mechanism down to make it more reliable.
Well, yeah. One of the reasons is actually, I mean, I did obviously test it a bit. If it was a sort of call to action, if you could test and see, just try it on, I don't know, Ubuntu, macOS. The issue which we were talking about appeared on Windows, which weren't able. There was a problem with the passing of dependencies through. Well, it doesn't matter. There were some problem through about dependencies, and because previously you had a second CMake configure code specific for the OpenSSL configuration, but now instead there's no CMake call. The project itself is inside the rest of the osquery project, like all the rest of the libraries. And yeah, basically the discovery of the dependencies should be tied with the discovery of dependency on osquery, which should already work. But yeah. Also, in this case, there is an issue open about this. This came again from the MCV MS. Oh, come on, the Microsoft Visual Studio team, which was trying to build osquery and wasn't able to because there was some issues with the formula. So I will ping them too again to see if it works for them too.
What I think you said you could use testing from more people. Is that testing on builds or testing on output binaries?
No, the build, just simply taking it on, trying to configure and build osquery with this new change. Just a single test, nothing else.
Okay, I can probably try building that branch. I'll try and comment in the PR. I don't know if there's anyone else who we want to tag in on that.
You mean, sorry, tag on the PR for testing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, anyone here, if they want to have time just to launch a configure and see if, because to be fair, the thing is, I cannot know what was happening, but I wasn't 100% able to reproduce the previous issue. And I saw, because especially on Windows, I think the issue is probably only on Windows. But yeah, since I did this kind of change, which is of considerate size, let's say, I wanted to know if on different environments, actual real environment, it was behaving correctly or not. Because sometimes the CI is a bit, a bit fake. and yeah, my environment are made in a certain way, etc.
I'll try and build it on at least Linux and Mac OS. I don't know if I can easily build on Windows.
Yeah, that's good anyway.
So I threw an issue into this list, issue 6290, which has two people have stumbled over this in Slack now. When we refactored the exit code, config check no longer exits.
Yeah, I think I gave it a very quick look. I didn't look at it again, but I suspect that there's we do call the function to exit, though that right now the function expects to be on a different thread, so expects to notify a main thread that has to exit. Instead, you are all on the main thread. You are on the main thread, so nothing happens because there's no main thread waiting for notification. So simply it has to call another function which immediately exit, which is I think shut down now. Or
is that so? I poked around and I don't understand all of the threading model here, but I sort of manually verified that, right? Like I could see it's calling the request shutdown functions and nothing happens. And I think that's probably true for everywhere in init.cpp that we make that call. There's like a handful of places where we call request shutdown for things like config file is bad and things like that. And if the correct thing to do is just to change them all to shutdown now, I can PR that.
Yeah, we have to check when. If that code can be called by the worker.
It can.
Okay, the worker is a different process, not the watchdog actually, because that's a thread.
The watchdog would never really be running config check.
Yeah, no. If there are other cases where we call request for shutdown, because the request is the request to another thread, so that if that only works if you are on another thread, which is not the main thread. So yeah, it has to be checked. I'm not 100%. I cannot say right now which calls are fine or not. Yeah.
If no one else gets anywhere, I can try and put a PR up sometime in the next week or two. But I kind of was like, I don't know what this is supposed to do, and I think I tagged tagged you and Teddy on that one. Is there a way to detect what thread you're in?
Yes, you can print. You can print the name of it.
So could we just have the request shutdown command detect whether it's in the main thread and trigger shutdown now?
I mean, yes, I will have to think. Yeah, I'm wondering basically if we want if it's better to have an API specific for the specific use you want to have. So that's declarative. So request for shutdown is again a request to another thread, and it doesn't kill the current thread if it's the main thread, and have for that case the request the shutdown now API for that case, or if what you are just saying. Yeah.
I guess I'd ask, are there any cases where we call request shutdown where we don't want to actually shut down?
No.
Then I feel like if then we may as well just put the logic to detect that into request shutdown and have it kind of do the right thing. That's my guess right now, like, because otherwise we're just adding code complexity, like we're adding caller complexity for no value.
No, yeah, you're right. Yep.
but sleep on it because like you've been in this code more than I have.
No, it makes sense.
If you can show me how to do that detection, I can probably work it into a PR. But I don't know how to do that. Even just like with a couple of puts, and I'll hit not puts, C outs. I can probably hack my way through the rest of it.
Yep. Yes. I think there was a code similar. Yeah, it's. So yeah, I do recall the API, how to get the ID, I don't recall it, how to match it. We did have a similar match. I will have to find it again. But yeah.
Okay, I can maybe dig around too. I don't know when I'll get to it. I'm, as mentioned, childing a lot right now.
Yeah, I see.
I think this is everything that we had called out in our notes. I don't know if anyone wants to bring anything else up.
Sounds like time to wrap it up then.
Does sound that way.
Seems
How are y'all holding up with COVID-19?
I think it's more of a mental thing. Just have to get mental toughness.
I like you've got like a hobo hat and a bottle of whiskey.
I wish it was whiskey. This is a protein shake. Trying to get swole for the upcoming riots, I'm assuming we're having. We'll see.
Yeah, hope not.
No,
I mean,
no. Well, just let Alessandro and Stefano tell you what's going to happen because they're 10 days ahead of us.
How are you two holding up?
Doing fine for now.
I think that probably in general the most preoccupied. I mean, if you are alone at home, it's actually a little better because you don't have the fear of eventually infecting someone when you have maybe to go out. Obviously, you have fear for yourself, but it would be worse to carry it also inside and to other people, to other your relatives or things like that. So yeah, it's mostly annoying, let's say, when you have to go. A bit of fear and annoying when you have to go to get food because yeah, you have to go out much less, and yeah, you have to prepare yourself a bit more to carry more stuff. Otherwise, you have to go out more. And
Yeah, mostly been yelling at all the relatives to stay at home because they don't understand.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, Zach, are you still California?
Yeah, I'm living in Tahoe, which is pretty calm, really.
Is
Not
that
too many
in
folks up here.
is that in one of the lockdown counties?
No, so no lockdown here, but the local industry is all based on tourism and mostly skiing this time of year, and every single ski resort in Tahoe is shut down. So people are hard hit in terms of no longer having jobs here.
Yeah. Definitely going to be a weird couple months.
Yeah, same situation in Vermont. They shut down everything. We usually go there, and industry shut down. People went home.
Yeah, my friends in hospitality are unemployed already.
That's tough.
I like your Christmas.
Yeah,
breakfast.
it's a hard time. I don't know if folks have ideas about how those of us in privileged positions who are still able to work and make money can help in reasonable ways. I'd be all ears to that. Message me privately if that seems appropriate.
I mean, at the small scale, we sort of maintain all of the nominal monthly memberships that we will get zero value out of over the next, couple of months. So like all of Gideon's activities, we're just like, yeah, we don't need a refund. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm doing the same on that front.
You still paying daycare? I have friends that pay daycare and they can't cancel or pause their memberships, but they can't use them either.
Gideon is in a private school.
Similar, I guess.
So yes, let's say. But we told his parkour class that they can keep his monthly membership, and his circus class that they can keep his monthly membership, and I'll do the same for our house cleaner. So that there's just a lot of the all those little things. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I know at least around where I am, there's a lot of people organizing food bank related stuff. And I also know that one of the big conversation topics in closing schools has been around food scarcity for kids, which is heartbreaking in a bunch of ways. Those of you not in the US is kind of a shit show.
Yeah, our schools are in charge of feeding our kids.
Huh.
Yeah, luckily in this area they set up they have a vacation program for summers and stuff, and they just started it early in this area. So the local schools here are leaving lunches outside the doorstep, and any kid can just go and grab some. And they're not doing any checks or anything, so that's nice. But yeah.
Folks, I've got to go, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Cheers, Zach. See you soon.
I've got to go as well. I have to go tag in childcare. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, bye. Have fun. Stay healthy.
thanks. I think one of the important things around this is probably just to try and stay connected to people. So it's nice to say hi to everyone.
Yeah. We'll be relying on the internet a lot because, well, I don't know. Some of us are home alone. So.
Oh, this reminds me. I'd forgotten. I have seen some speculation that we are likely to see an increase in remote work, obviously, at least temporarily, and probably we're going to see more and more corporate VPNs melting, and thus more interest in zero trust based systems, of which osquery may play a surprisingly interesting role as part of agent vetting.
Finally, our time to shine.
So there's definitely a little bit of ambulance chasing as a project where I'm like, how can we make sure we're positioned? So, I don't think any of us are in places where people are like, I need to build an endpoint agent. What should I use? Because
Good job on Collide for writing those blog posts. Also, Zach, he dropped off, but we discussed making popularizing the query in the releases, and it sounds like a few folks followed up, so that's nice.
Yeah, we just had a blog post on Trilobits too yesterday.
I saw. Nice.
But it was a little bit late since Zach had already posted.
It was great. Lots of them were good. Okay, I'm going to vanish for real, but nice to see everyone.
Yeah.
And see you all in a while.
Yeah, the same.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Dropping.
Bye.
Bye.